Hello everyone, welcome back to another video of Cloud Deep Dive. In today's video, we will talk about AWS Cloud WAN, which was launched as a public preview during reInvent 2021 and AWS make it generally available during July 2022. So let's first understand what kind of challenges organizations were facing, which Cloud WAN can solve. So starting with like all organizations had their applications on their data center and they start migrating those applications to AWS cloud and they used VPC run the resources on this VPC. Now these applications need connectivity with your on-prem as well. So companies were using TrackNet with Transit Gateway and now your workload has expanded from one region to another, so you are using multiple region as well which need to connect with each other, so you create the transit gateway peering there. Now suppose you may have like more complex that you instead of two region you might running in 10 different regions and all of them need to talk to each other, then your transit gateway peering become more and more complex. You may have requirement like that you have development VPC which should not talk to the production VPCs in any region, then you need to update your transit gateway route table in such a way that there is no connectivity between these two. You may have a requirement saying that whenever a new development VPC is attached, it should not be able to talk to this product VPC. You want to automate that process and you have that requirement. Instead of updating the route table, it just get updated automatically whenever based on some tags or some key value, right? You may have a different company organization which is getting merger with which is getting merging with your organization, and you need to bring to the same network, but you may need to isolate that completely from the other organization. So you see that more and more workload is moving to the cloud, more and more regions are getting expanded, more and more mergers are happening. Your network will become more complex and it's not that easy to maintain. So Cloud WAN is a service which can solve this kind of problem. So what is a Cloud WAN? Cloud WAN is a managed wide area network service that makes it easy to build, manage, and monitor a global network that connects resources running across your cloud and on-prem environment. So like I'm showing in this particular diagram or picture that you have Cloud WAN. In Cloud WAN you can create different segments, and segments is like can be your, you can create a segment for your development environment, you can create a segment for a production environment or stage environment, or for the shared services, or segment can be one of your business units. Suppose you have 10 different business units, you can create 10 different segments, one for each business unit, and these can connect with your VPC, this can connect with transit gateway, your client VPN, SD-WAN. So there are a lot of things which can be attached to it. And by default, these segments cannot talk to each other. So they're isolated from each other. So like one of the requirements which I was talking about, that development VPC should not be talking to production VPC, then you can create two different segments, one for development and one for prod. They won't be able to talk to each other. Whenever you add a new VPC in development, it's by default not talking to the production VPC. And you can define those rules as well, which I'll show you how you can do that, which can allow some VPCs to talk to some other VPC in the different segment. So it gives you segmentation, it provides you the automation as well, that whenever you add a new VPC attachment, it will go to a particular segment only. You can do that kind of automation as well. So before we go into the console and see that how you can create a Cloud WAN, I just want to go over a few key terminologies which will be helpful for you to understand when we do the demo. So let's start with the AWS Network Manager. So AWS Network Manager is the interface in the AWS Management Console to centrally manage your global network. Next, what is global network? Global network is a private network that acts as a root level container for your network objects like transit gateway or your Cloud WAN. Next is Cloud WAN, which is also you will see that some places also referred as a core network. That's part of your global network managed by AWS, like we just discussed. Next, you have the core network policy. Core network policy is a single version policy document which define all aspects of your core network. So it's kind of an IAM policy, like you write the IAM policy and you put all the components in there, that what you want to do and all those things. So you can write a policy to create a Cloud WAN. If you need to update something and go to the policy, you can make the changes and deploy that policy. You can do it through the console as well, but policy is another, like is again converted to the JSON format, which has the everything what you have set up in the your console. Next is the network segments. Like we mentioned that you can create multiple segments and by default they are isolated with each other. So if you need to create, maybe you need to create segments for your development, production, shared service environment, maybe for different views, you can do those. Uh, Next you have, so like I mentioned the segments. Next you have the core network edge. So core network edge is a regional component point to your attachment as defined by the policy. So in the policy that you will mention that how many regions you want to deploy. So one thing about Cloud WAN is you can deploy or you can create a Cloud WAN with across multiple regions. It's not restricted with one or two regions. You can have 10 different regions where your applications are running. So core network edge, you will get one edge location for each region, and that's kind of like connection point for your attachments. Now talking about attachments, it can be like your VPCs, like you can attach your VPC, you can attach your transit gateway to it, you can connect your SD-WAN, VPN, like I showed in my first diagram, client VPN, you can have these attachments as well. So next, let's go to the console and we'll see that how you can create a Cloud WAN. Okay, I have logged in into my console, and to create the Cloud WAN we have to go to VPC, and under VPC you will see AWS Cloud WAN Network Manager. We'll click on that. It will take us to a new screen where we'll click on Get Started. So we see that in the Network Manager you have, right now we don't have any global network. So like I mentioned or showed you in my PPT, that you will have Network Manager, under that you have global network, and global network is basically a private network that act as a root level container, right? So we'll create a global network. Let's give a name of Cloud Deep Dive global network, and description is optional, and if you want to put some tags you can do that. Next. So right now I'm not creating any core network in that Cloud WAN. I'm just creating a empty shell, you can say, of global network. Click next and create global network. So my global network is created. Let's open it, and here you will see that it shows that what all different things you can have. Like you can have your Cloud WAN, which will have edge locations. So depending upon how many regions you have created the Cloud WAN, it will show all those edge locations. You have any transit gateway, device, site. So this global network is basically a container which will show you everything you have in your network. Uh, Now let's go and create a core network. So first we'll give a name. Suppose we give Cloud Deep Dive core network, and let's give the same in the description. Here you can provide some tags. Now you can create this Cloud WAN or core network in multiple locations. So suppose I want to choose Singapore and North Virginia. These are the two regions where I'm creating it. Now ASN ranges depend like on how many regions you are selecting. So right now I'm selecting two regions, so I have to give a range of 64512 to 64513. So one ASN number will be assigned to one edge location or your core network edge location or the region, right? So but I can also say that I want to give it to 15, just kind of give a little higher number in case I want to do an expansion. But if you want if you want to edit, you can edit it later on as well after creating the core network. So it's not like it will be fixed once you have created it, so you can always edit it. So let's create it into region North Virginia and Singapore, and by default you have to create a segment. You cannot have a core network without a segment, so it will always have one default segment. So we'll say shared services or shared service. In the description as well we'll put the name same, and we'll click on create network, create core network build is in progress. And let's go to the policy version and see what you have. So right now it created by default, like whenever you create a core network, it create a policy version with version 1, and right now it's in executing state. When we open it, you will see that is the policy detail, whatever information you have selected while creating the core network. You will find all the information here. Next you can see the same information in the JSON format, and if you see, it looks like something similar to your IAM policies, right? Here you can see your execution process. So right now it's trying to create core network edge at two locations, US East 1 and AP South East 1. and after it's done it will create segment in these two locations. So what I'll do, I will pause the video for now because it might take 10 to 15 minutes to complete this core network, and once it's complete then we'll come back and we'll take it forward from there. Okay, so you can see that my core network is completed. This policy has been executed and it took almost around 12 minutes to complete. So once your core network policy is executed, you will see that your policy is executed and succeeded and it's the latest version. If you go to the core network, you will see that you have two edge locations, and in the geography it's showing that what are the two, where those two edge locations are. Right now it's only one segment and no device, no sites. If you go to topology graph, it will show you that particular graph as well, that what are the two edge locations, how many segments are attached to it, and other information. So here in the nice view it will show you, and if you have more then it will show you the whole mesh network you have. Similarly, you can see the topology tree about your network, and in the end, like, you will see the monitoring that about your network bytes in, byte out, packet in, packet out, and all this information. If we go to policy version, let's have a quick glance at like what all information you have. You have the general setting, and then you have your ASN range, which you can edit if you need to. uh, Inside cider block, then you have edge locations where you have deployed your cloud WAN, and if you want to add, you can add more in future. Right now, we have only one shared service segment which we created while getting the cloud WAN, but we can add more. And then you have other information like sharing routes, which I'll be covering later in this video or maybe in next video. And then you have the attachment policies. So now let's do one thing, that let's try to edit this policy. Okay, and you have four different sections. So network configuration you can change. If you want to add more edge locations, you can do that, and if you want to edit your ASN range, you can do that, right? So what we need to do, that we need to create two more segments in this. So right now we have only one segment, shared service. So what we'll do, we will create a new segment called development segment. After giving the name, next you need to specify whether the attachments which will be attaching to this segment require an acceptance or not. That means that whether those attachments will require any approval or not. So if you want that any attachment which is attached to the development segment require an approval before it's part of the segment, then you can select it yes. So I'll just keep it no for now. Next is isolated attachments. What does that mean? That by default all the attachments attached to a particular segments can talk to each other. So resource, suppose you have four different VPCs attached to this segment, resources on those VPCs can talk to other resources in other VPC in the same segment. But if you want to isolate this, you want that, hey, between this VPC attachment resources should not talk to each other for this particular segment, then you can isolate those as well. So for now I'll just keep it blank. I don't want them to isolate. I'll just keep it null here. Next, limit to a specific edge location. What does that mean, right? If you don't select anything, it will create this segment to all the edge locations Cloud WAN has. So right now, like, we have two edge locations, it will create both the edge locations. But if you want to limit it to a certain edge location, you can do that as well. Segment filter, basically what it means, that by default two different segments cannot talk to each other, and right now you are saying that I'm allowing all the segments who can come and talk to this particular segment, even though you need to create those routes later on to create that connectivity, but at least I'm not denying it here. But you can say that I am denying a particular segment, or I'm allowing a particular array of segments, right? You have that option. So I'll keep it by default like allow all, and we'll create this segment. So this is my development segment. So similarly, I'll create one more for the production. And in that, what I will do, that I require an acceptance. I also say the isolate attachments. Okay, and we'll do the create segment. So these are the two changes I had done, and what we'll do after that, we'll click on create policy. So once you click on create policy, what it's gonna do, it will create a new version of your policy which is generating right now, and once it's generated, after that you can apply those changes. So That's one of the good thing about Cloud WAN is that you are changing a policy. Now you don't need to execute that change right now. You just make the change and put it there. So think in that way that you have a junior network engineer who made the changes to the policy, and you can just limit the right that the person can only make the changes. Now the senior network engineer can come and review the policy, and then you can execute the changes during your off or during a maintenance window, right? So it won't disturb your network. That it's not like the moment you make the change and it's going to impact your whole network. You can apply these changes and you can review it and apply those changes whenever you want. Other beauty of this is like if you want to roll back, if suppose after applying these changes something happened that your network has some issue, you can always fall back to your previous version, because your previous all the versions will be there until unless you delete it. So you can see that this policy is created and ready to execute. So what we can do, we can click here, we can click on the view and apply change set, and here it will show you that what all changes you have done, right? uh, and you can click on the detail, it will show you that what you have changed and all the stuff. And after that you can click on apply change set. So again it will take some time to execute these changes because it's going to do it on both the locations. And you can see the process there, execution process. So again I will pause the video, wait for this to complete, and then I'll show you. And one other thing before I pause it, like you can see the JSON here, that earlier JSON was very small. Now you can see that we have three different segments. Earlier we only had a shared, now we have the development and we have production as well. Okay, so execution has completed, and you can see that my policy version 2 is live, and the previous version is my initial version and my previous version. And if I want, I can again click and create a new policy version out of it, taking this as a base. And if I want to roll back, and I can roll back to this one as well. So next, what I gonna do that, let me go to the PPT. So guys, right now we have this setup where we have Cloud WAN deployed in two different regions. We have created the Cloud WAN with three different segments: development, prod, and shared segment. In the parallel, what I've done that I've created three VPC in my Singapore region. One is my development, prod, and inspection VPC. And next, what we are going to do that we will attach these VPCs with this three segment: development, prod, and shared. Uh, for that, what I will do that I will create some attachment policy, because whenever you create an attachment or attach a VPC to a segment as attachment, we attachment policies get executed, and based on those attachment policy, it will attach to the particular segment. So our goal is that development VPC should be attached to development segment, prod should go to the prod, and the inspection should go to the shared service. And we need to automate this process, that whenever a new VPC get attached, it will automatically attach to the corresponding segment based on the characteristics of that particular VPC. So let's go to the console and see how we can create our attachment policy. Okay, so to create attachment policy, we'll go to our network policy and we'll click on edit. Then we'll go to attachment policies and we'll click on create. So first you have to provide the rule number. Every policy will have a rule number. So every policy will have a rule number, and whenever you attach any VPC attachment or any other attachment, all the attachment policy will get executed based on the rule number. Lowest the rule number will get executed first, and then it will go to the next number, and then it will go to the next number. The moment any particular rule matches all the condition, it will stop there and it won't go to the further rules. So suppose you have four rules from 100, 200, 300, 400. If your rule number 200 matches all the condition, it satisfies all everything what is mentioned in there, it will just stop there, it won't execute rule 3 and 400. It's something similar to what you have in NACL. So let's keep the rule number as 100. Next option, you have the action. So you have two things here. One is like condition, one is action. So action is basically what will happen when all the conditions matches. That means that you want to attach this whatever attachment is coming to a segment. There are two ways to do that. One, you can directly attach it to segment name. Suppose I say I want to attach it to development if all the conditions satisfy here. Or I will say that I instead of giving the name, what I want that I want to check the tag value. So when you are creating a VPC attachment, you can give a key value pair. Now, whatever the value you are specifying for a particular key, and the key I can specify here. So I say that if whatever the value of this environment field you are specifying in your VPC attachment, I will take that value and attach this attachment to that particular segment. So suppose I say that key values environment is development, then I'll take the development and match that to have any segment name development. If yes, then I'll attach that particular attachment to that development segment. Conditions, you can have logic. So is and or is basically you can have multiple conditions. You want to use or logic or you want to use and logic between these conditions. And you have different options that you can say that I want to match the resource ID, region, attachment type, account, tag name, tag value. You can also say that if my tag value environment is development, then attach it to the development environment, or if something else, then attach to something else. So these are the all fields you have in this. In addition, you have attachment acceptance option. So while creating the segment, we talked about that whether the attachment require acceptance or not. You want to inherit whatever you choose the option at the segment level, you can choose that. Or if you want to override that option, you can override that option as well here. So for our use case, I'll keep it as attachment by tag value, and we'll check the value of tag value of environment key field. And one thing to remember that when you create the attachment policy, you should have at least one condition. So what I'll do that because I don't have any other condition to match, so I'll just use any. So it will just kind of any condition you're having, doesn't matter. It will just check the environment field and it will attach that policy. So we'll click on create attachment policy, and this you can see the rule. And if you want, you have different requirement, you can add more rules. And then we'll click on create policy. So now it will take some time to create this policy. First it will generate it and then we'll execute it. While it's doing it, in the meantime, let's go and see that what all fields we have in the attachment. We can discuss it and uh, in the meantime. So while creating the attachment, you will click on the create attachment, you give the name, then you will choose the edge location. You want to do it at the Virginia location or you want to do it at the Singapore location. So it will have all the edge locations which you have created during your cloud WAN. So we'll choose Singapore. Then if you require IPv6 support or not, then you can use that. I'm not doing it. Then you will choose the VPC ID. So for me, I'm doing first for the development VPC, so I'll choose that. And then you have to specify which particular subnet you want to do it. So I've already created a subnet in that for the core network, so I'll choose that particular subnet. And here you will provide the environment field, and you will see. So here you will give the segment name. So let's verify the segment name one more time just to make sure the spelling is correct, otherwise it won't work. And in the meantime, you see that my policy is available and ready to execute, so we can do that as well. Let's click on that and apply change set, and let's go and check our segment name. So my segment name is development. Let's go back and make sure I have the same. So these are the only data you have to provide in there, and then you can click on create attachment. So right now it won't work because my attachment policy is not there. Even though I click on it, it won't add to the development segment because there's no policy there, which there's no attachment policy to execute. So let's pause the video to make sure this policy is executed, and once is executed, then we'll create these attachments to, and we'll show you that it's going to the right segment. So our policy is executed and is live now. So now we can go ahead and click on create attachment. So now you can see the moment I click on the create attachment, my policy number 100 is executed and it's attached to development segment. It will take some time to create this attachment, but you can see that my rule is executed and it's mapped to my development segment. Now let's go ahead and create one for the production as well. So I'll go again in the Singapore region And now another thing is like you can have different attachment type. Right now I'm doing only for the VPC, but you can have VPN connect or transit gateway route table as well. Select the VPC prod and then we'll give the environment. First we need to select which subnet, so I'll just have only one. I have only one subnet in that. We'll choose that. Then we'll use the environment field and we'll give production and we'll do the create attachment. Now you see that because in my production segment, let me go and show you here. In the segments for the production it required acceptance, so see it mapped to production but it didn't attach it, it's pending attachment acceptance. So uh, right now I have at that right that I can accept it, but you can create the roles or give the rights in the IAM policy for that particular user. Based on that they cannot accept it, so only the senior network engineer can go and accept it. So based on that you can create roles and attach it to the users accordingly. So what I'll do for now that I'll click on and accept it, and let me just refresh it. Now you see it's creating. So similarly you can create for the shared service as well. Okay, so our attachments are created. Now let's go to my uh, topology graph and you can see that it's showing that you have two different region, US East 1 and IP Southeast, and it has three different segments: development, shared and production, but there is no attachment to these. But in the AP Southeast you have, with the development and production, you have one attachment. Similarly in your topology tree you will see that you have core network with two edge locations, and with AP Southeast 1 you have a segment, development and production, which has some attachments. Now if we go to the route table and if I show for the development and Southeast 1, you will see a route here that any traffic coming from the VPC cider, this is the cider for this development VPC, will go to this attachment. And this attachment is, if I show you attachments, this is your development attachment. So what it's saying that any traffic coming for this particular route, it will send the traffic to the development attachment. Now if I see for the production, you won't see any route here, and the reason for that is if we go back to our policy and you will see that under segment we said that isolate attachments. So what does that mean? That there is no traffic can go to these VPC attachments. These VPC attachments cannot talk to anything. So if you have, suppose you have three different VPC attachment to the production, because whatever traffic is coming to the core network, it won't go to any of those VPC attachment. If you need to, either you can uh, uncheck that isolate attachment, or if you want to specify a particular static route, then you can add those routes in your network policy. So next, one other thing you need to do. So now what happened that you have your development VPC attached to your development segment, production attached to the production segment. Now what you need to do, that you need to update the route table of those VPCs for that particular subnet. So in our case in development, I attached this particular subnet to the core network. So any traffic which is going to the internet, suppose, or maybe for a particular IP address, you want to send it to the core network. So you need to add a route here. So what I'll do that I'll click on edit route and I'll say that any internet traffic should go to my core network, and I'll add select that particular core network and save changes. So now what will happen that from this subnet, any in, any traffic except the local route, any other IP address traffic will go to the core network, and in the core network this route filter, this route table will be checked. So suppose I want to send it some, or I want to connect to the production VPC. It will send the traffic to the core network, and then in the core network it will check the production and the AP Southeast one, do we have any route? Since we don't have any route, it will drop the traffic. So that's how you are controlling that no traffic from the development VPC will go to your production VPC. But if you add a static route or by any other mean you are adding a route here, then it will take that path and it will send the traffic to that particular attachment. So that's all I wanted to show in this particular video. Just wanted to go over what is Cloud WAN. Wanted to show you that how the policy version work. You can have different versions. In that I wanted to show you the how the segment work, cache location work, and how your attachment policy work. In the next video we'll talk about sharing and these routes. So stay tuned, I will be recording that video soon. And if you like this video, please hit on the like button. And if you're new to my channel, please do subscribe to the channel. I will be uploading a lot of other AWS related videos, and please share with your friends. Thank you so much everyone for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.